Good afternoon. It's Brenda with Luke's, and we are back to do our third installment on the Premier+2 software. So welcome back. Hopefully you had a good week off. I know I did. I went to Amish country, and I may or may not, I can not confirm or deny that I may have purchased some fabric. You know I did. So anyway, today we're going to get started on session 3. We've got also a couple of reminders and announcements. And let's see where I'm at here for the announcements. All right. Number 1, there will be a 2-part paper piecing class on a table runner. Dates to be announced. And Kathleen is doing that, and she is actually going to be writing the pattern herself. So we're pretty excited about that. It'll be paper piecing. That's number 1. Number 2, we're really encouraging you on our Facebook group, which is Luke's Sewing Made Simple, to post your projects so we can see what you're working on, and the other people that are your Luke's friends can see what you're working on as well. So please do that. Next thing, we've had a really good response to the software class, and we'd like to know if you want us to keep it going, if you want us to do this for another 3 weeks. Trust me. Can I come up with topics? Of course. So if you'd like us to do that, please chime in, let us know. The other thing that I'd like to do as part of that extending of the software, if we're going to do that, is I would like you to send me questions to answer. Things maybe that you've come across or that you'd like to do. And if you want to send those questions, excuse me, send those to lukesewingcenter@gmail.com. Okay, and I'll be typing that for you in a minute, just to make sure that you've got all the spelling correct on that. So we'll do that. I think that is all the announcements. We have any other announcements? Oh, we do want everyone to sign in, meaning say, hi, hello, I'm here, just so we can get your name down. We are going to have a drawing for a door prize at the end of class. Must be present to win, of course. Alex, would you like to hand me our prize? It is a product that I like to use, which is Freight Check. So that is if you nip some fabric, haven't we all done it, or you're working with something that maybe is a little bit fuzzy or whatever, this Freight Check will keep the fabric from fraying and stop your threads from unraveling. So nice little product. So that'll be our prize. All right. I think that we are ready to start. And I want to do a little bit of a recap. And Alexis, I need the mouse. Are you going to switch me to the screen? She's giving me the rodent, because gosh knows I love a good rodent. All right, so now we're good. We're showing the screen. Okay, so just a little bit of a recap. We talked a lot about fonts, and I can see everyone rolling their eyes. Oh my God, is she going to talk about fonts again? No, I'm not. However, I want to bring up just a couple of things. I did have a question over the week. It was from Sweet Ann with an E. And her question was this. She said, Brenda, I bought a design from a site, and it was a text design. And you see those everywhere. They're darling. They've got a lot of really cute sayings. They're fun. Text is big everywhere in design. So she bought the design, brought it into her software, and she knew that it was a large satin font in the design that she had purchased. She remembered from last week that we had talked about taking a large satin font and changing the stitch type, remember right up here, to make it a pattern for a couple of reasons. Number 1, if it's a large satin font and it was going to be on like a towel and was going to go into the laundry, if it's a large satin area, it can get snagged very easily and get pulled. That's number 1, why you might change it to a stitch type. Or if you have a Janome machine, we know that the Janome will stitch a satin stitch up to 7 millimeters wide, but if it's wider than that, then you do need to change the stitch type to a pattern. So her question was, she bought this design with a lot of text on it, and she wanted to know if she could change the stitch type within that design she's purchased. So the answer is yes and no. Thank you for clarifying that, Brenda. Okay, so taking the design into extra in what we've been studying right here in the fonts, that is a design. We didn't type the font, so I can't change the stitch type. So the answer to that is And the simple answer to that is no. However, as our classes go on, and I'm hoping that you're all going to vote that we can continue these software classes for you, we'll be getting into what's called the Create module in the Ultra version of the software. And there, the answer is yes. And things get a little bit more complex because these things that we're going through right now are fairly simple. So we'll show you how to do some of those changes, but that's going to be down the road. Okay, so that's an answer for Sweet Anne with an E. Okay, now I want to show you something else. And I know this is going to be bizarre, but I love bizarre. So I'm going to go into letters, and I am going to just type something in a fun font. And let's make it 20, make it pretty big. I'm going to type happy, come on, graduation. I'm going to put that on there. All right, and then I'm going to go and I'm going to choose another font. I'm going to use, size is that one, this one. I'm going to put I hate this keyboard. Congratulations. Okay, let's make it a little bigger just for fun. Okay, so all I've done is I've got some text here. Now, if you remember, we talked about being able to share a design with someone to proof it. So this is something that I did that may come into play. If you have grandchildren or if you have children and you need to make posters for them, well, these fonts that are in your software are really nice. I mean, they're wide, there's fancies, there's script, there's designs, there are athletic fonts. In fact, I'm going to add one more. I'm going to add an athletic font, which I know is up here at the top. There it is. Okay. All right, great win. So these are just words. I know that. But what you can do is, because they're in color, you can take this text, you can, remember we looked at the appearance, I can white out the grid and I can make the background white, or I can change it to another color. And I can actually export the, all right, it wants a bigger hoop. That's fine. There we go. Okay. I can share the picture. And we've done this, we did this yesterday, or last week, 2 weeks ago. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this picture and I am going to save it as a JPEG. And you can see that right down here on the screen. So I'm going to put it on my desktop. All right. So, and this is just a computer function. So now we see this page. If I take this page that I've typed messages in different fonts and different colors, and remember this is a JPEG, which is a picture, and I actually can send this, because it's a picture, I can send this to Walgreens and have it printed. So now I have lovely text in different fonts that I can cut apart and go and make that nifty poster. Okay, so that's another way that I've used the software. I've used the fonts to create text, have it printed photographically, cut them apart, and use them on posters for senior posters. So just another idea on how you can use your software. Now, right now you can see the background here is blue, which is fine. You may want it blue. You can change it to whatever color you like. All right. So I'm going to go back in here. Yes, I'm done with fonts. I know, I heard you. Okay. Now, another thing that we talked about last week were the super designs, and I do want to bring up one other point on that. Everything okay, Alexis? Okay, good. And that is this. So we're looking at all the applique designs, and one of the things that you can do is I'm going to pick the sun, and I have my sun, which we like. There it is. Now, I called up the design, but look here, I clicked on the File tab and right under Export, and we'd learned about how to export our designs. We know how to do that, but right under that, holy cow, it says Export Applique Pieces. So what that will do for me is when I have an applique design, it will actually export the cutting files for a cutter. So a lot of you probably have Cricuts or Silhouettes or Cameos or Scanning Cuts. Each of those has a cutting file format. Your software will export the pieces of the design as cutting files, and you can cut them out of the fabric with your cutter. So right up here, and I'm going to hit cancel. So when we look here, it would cut a round circle for the face. It would cut all these little pointy spokes for my sun. So how easy is that? When we want to do an applique, your software will export the pieces. The cutter cuts them out. Of course, your sewing machine is still going to do the applique function. So it'll do the shape of the sun. So it would do the circle. It would wait. You would take the circle that was cut out by your cutter, place it on the hoop, and it would stitch down. Same thing with all the rest of it. The idea is it's a time saver because it cut the pieces out for you. So I was pretty excited about that. The other thing that I might do is if I'm positioning those pieces of fabric down, okay, that the cutter cut out, I might use a bit of a glue stick for fabric, just a glue stick to hold them in position so they don't shift. Okay. The other choice, of course, is to cut them out with fusible on the back, like a Wonder Under or a Heat and Bond. So that's kind of a little bit of an update on our super design applique. I wanted to talk about that. All right. Any questions? Are we doing? We've got some people. All right. It looks like we're good. Excellent. Okay. So I'm going to move on to something else. And that happens to be a wizard. And the first wizard that we're going to take a look at is the Express Monogram. And when I click on Wizard tab and then the monogram, it's going to give me some choices to create a monogram. And monograms are very popular. So whenever we see a drop-down menu, we know that there are choices. And within this software on the monograms, I can go single letter, I can go dual side by side, 3 letters. I can go and do a 3-letter choice down here, which is going to be my choice. Okay. Right here is where we put the letters in. So we're going to do this for Alexis. So we know it's Alexis. And that's going to be a capital P. What's your middle name, Alexis?
Star.
I knew that.
You did know that.
I did know that. Sorry. Okay. So it's giving me a little bit of a preview right here of how that would look. Now, I've got some choices on that 3-letter because we chose the 3-letter monogram here. We put in our letters. Now it's giving me choices on layout for that 3-letter monogram. And of course, again, in this software, anytime you see a drop down or a scroll bar, there are choices, and there are a ton. Okay, I kind of like this little round one here. I think that might be fun. And now I look at these fonts and I say, that looks terrible. But luckily, again, we have choices. So for the full letter, which is the letter in the middle, we're going to go right up here. And this should look familiar because it gives me a choice going through all of the fonts again. So for this one, I'm going to choose Gaudi. I've got the P, and then I've got the A and the S. So for the small letter here, I'm going to choose, I think I'm going to choose Nadine. That's not bad. Okay, so we've got our 3 letters. And then, of course, I'm sure you notice across the top, we have a choice for the border. Right now, we've got a satin, and we have some choices. So I can decide on the margin, I can increase the size. I'm going to exaggerate it. And you can see that that put a large margin around those letters. So I probably wouldn't go quite that wide. Okay, I can't seem to keep up with you. Okay, so what we're doing is, I'm going to take this window and move it down. And this is, well, who am I speaking with? Cheryl. Okay, Cheryl. Across the top, these are tabs. Okay, we're in the Wizards tab. We're in Express Monogram. When I choose Express Monogram, it brings up this window. When we're in, again, I'm going to refer to these as tabs, so we're all using the same vocabulary. So these tabs, in the Monogram tab, I have a drop-down menu to choose the format of my monogram. I chose the 3 letters. The next, I chose the letters to make my monogram, and we did Alexis, pageant, star. When I look at the letters here, I also have choices on the format for the monogram, and I chose the circle format up here. Okay, and we know that there are always in this software lots of choices, so I chose the circle format. And now we're going into customizing it. So at this point, we're going across the monogram. We've already done the full letter, and we chose in the fonts, we chose the drop-down fonts, and I am in the modern, and this is probably where I lost you, Cheryl, and I apologize because I went too fast. I went in the full letter. I went into the modern font selection, and you can see on the scroll bar, it's about not quite halfway down to get to the modern selection. And then in the center column, I chose Gaudy. Okay, and that's for the capital letter P. For the small letter, I did the drop down again for the fonts. And that font happens to be also in the modern selection. Again, my scroll bar is almost halfway down. I chose Nadine. And now I've got my monogram. How are we doing, Cheryl? She's good. Okay. Now, the next thing that we're working on is just, again, tailoring it and going across the tabs. I see border. And we were looking at the margin. The margin is the space between the letters and the border. I exaggerated it so you could see what we were doing. I'm going to go ahead and make that smaller. All right, we've got that down to 7. And I can choose if I want rounded corners. I like the rounded corners. And then this is the border itself. Right now you can see that it's a satin. So I can do a motif. And I'm clicking on the stars here. So I've got stars going around there. If I'm doing a motif, I of course have options. So instead of a star, I can choose a whoop-de-doo. So we're going to do a whoop-de-doo just to see what it looks like. Oh, that's pretty. I like that. That's very feminine. Very nice. Okay, so this is the motif. Options allows me to choose different items to go around. So, and as always, in this software, there are choices. So the universal group, there's universal, there's my motifs, there are Viking motifs. The category here under universal, I've got general motifs, and there are plenty more, okay? And then the patterns. So there are always choices. All right, so, okay. Let's see. So the 2 outside letters will be the same font. That is correct, Sharon Martin. So the 2 outside letters on the monogram would be the same font. And I just chose rather quickly. I think these fonts are a little bit bent. I don't know that I would necessarily stitch this out. I'm just more or less giving you the way to do this, to plan it. Good question. Okay, so we were just looking at the motifs, and you can see that I called it the whoop-de-doo. It's just a swirl. And when I hit OK, it put that around the 3 letters, which I do kind of like that. That's kind of fun. Now that's the motif. Then of course we can choose a running stitch. That's boring. Don't do that. Well, you can, but it's boring. I can do a triple stitch, which means a heavier running stitch. That's ugly. We're going to go back to the whoop-de-doo because why not? It's pretty. Now, that is a lovely monogram. If I were using a satin border, I can also, ding, 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 add an applique if I like. Okay? So I've added an applique, so it would do the full machine 3 steps. So it would do the circle, let you put the fabric down. Then I would tack it down. Then I would trim it. Then I would do the satin stitch. Now, that looks ugly. So I'm just, because I can't stand that gray, it is ugly. I'm just going to pick a different color. I think I want something light. Yeah, we'll go with yellow. Okay. All right. Now, obviously, this is on the screen. You would pick whatever fabric you wanted, but I think that makes a nice way to do an applique. And remember, we spoke about patches being kind of a thing again. This is another way to do a patch. Simple way to do it. 3 letters, you're good to go. Okay? All right. So that is our applique. Now, when I hit finish, it's going to bring it into the hoop. So when I planned it before, I planned the applique, and then finish turns it into a stitch design. Now, obviously, I wouldn't use this huge hoop because that's silly. I would use a much smaller hoop to stitch that out. Let's see. I think we're doing okay. I think we're going to move on from monograms. Everybody go with monograms? I think so. Good. All right. So now I'm going to deep 6 this, which means delete. We're going to move on to something that's kind of exciting. We're still in the Wizards tab. All right. So we see the tabs across the top. We're still in the Wizards. We're going to look at quilt block. All right. So there are a lot of choices in here for you to explore. The one that we are going to look at is we're going to create a quilt block with an embroidery in the center, and then the quilting will surround the design. So I am going to go with the filled quilt block. I'm going to go to next. The shape I'm choosing is a square because I want my quilt block to be square. I see that it is 200. It's a square, so obviously both sides are going to be 200, so that's fine. I'm going to go to next, and it's going to ask me to open an embroidery. And in the embroideries, we know how to open an embroidery. We go to Documents. We go to Premier+2. We go to Samples. We go to Premier+2 Embroidery. We go to Stitch 2. That gives me all of my categories. I'm going to Animals. When I click on Animals, I see them. Now, remember, if you are seeing this, you're a little frustrated because you can't see the designs. Remember, you're going to go up here in the software to change the view. And I like to use the large icons so I can see what's in the folder. I'm going to pull this down, and I know there's a whale down here that I wanted. Got the whale. I'm going to hit open. So there's my whale. He's cute. Does it have to be a simple design? No. Can it be any design I want? Yes. I will tell you this. We're going to put some quilting around this whale, and it's going to be really cool. If you wanted that whale to be bigger, you would have opened the design in the traditional software, enlarged it, which we know how to do that because of resize, and saved it as a larger design before you pull it into this wizard block. Okay, I'm okay with the size of this whale, but if you pick something really small, you're going to see in a minute why you may want to enlarge it before we do the quilting around it. So this is going to be my quilt block. I'm going to hit next. And we're going to make some changes here. Here's my motif, and we see that there's a pretty good amount of space around it. I can change that right now. It's set for 5 millimeters. I'm going to crank that down to 3 millimeters, so there's just a little bit of space. Okay, I'm going to hit next. Don't gasp. This is kind of cool. Oh my goodness. Okay, so it's got some stippling around our whale. I'm not a huge stipple fan on this one. I do like some of the other designs. So there are all of these different quilting designs. I'm going to choose the crosshatch. Now, look at that. That kind of makes me dizzy. Number one, it's too busy. Number two, it's a ton of stitches for a quilt block. If only there were a way that we could space this crosshatch to make it a little bit larger. Of course there is. So I'm going to go into Options. and I see the gap here is 5 millimeters. In other words, that's how far apart that crosshatch is. So I'm going to increase that to 8. Okay, so crosshatch to H. And there are, again, lots and lots of different choices within this options box on the curved crosshatch. We're just going to go ahead and hit OK. Much better. I like that. Okay, so you can bring in a motif and do quilting around your quilt block. Can you vary the size of the quilt block? Absolutely. What are the limitations? Oh, the only limitation is going to be the size of the hoop that you have on your machine. So if you have an Applique, of course, there's a 360 by 260, so you could do a pretty good sized quilt block in that, right? Because 260 is 10 inches. So you might go a little shy of 10 inches to make your quilt block. Okay, you could do a 10 by 10. Or if you have the 260 by 260 block, 260 by 260 hoop, that's a 10 by 10 mega quilter hoop. So it really just depends on the size of the hoop that you have. So there are other choices, of course. We can go into the motifs. Way too busy for me. If only there were options. Of course there are. So we're going to go in, and we don't want a star. We want, let's see. I'm not going to do a heart because heart's goofy. There's that whip-de-doo again. I think that's kind of cool. Oh, I want this. I want the shell. I like that. Height, width, I'm okay with that. Proportional, I'm okay with that. Spacing, let's go into that, and let's just increase that a little bit. Okay, so let's hit OK. Let's see what we get. Nice. Lovely. So we've got some little shells around them. Now, again, to me, this is a little busy, so I might space these out a little bit more. But I think what we saw, well, there's some cute motifs that you can do some quilting with. Next, we're going to take a look at one of my favorites, which is Echo Quilting. I love this. So it will quilt around the motif and then end up with squares. And as you would guess, okay, we have some choices on how we can do that Echo Quilting. So I could do a double stitch. Okay. I don't think I like that as well. I think it kind of boogered it up. But I think what you're seeing is that you've got a lot of choices that you can create and make the quilting go around your embroidery motif. So that's kind of nifty. All right, so we'll hit finish, and then it brings that into the embroidery hoop. Now, as you would guess, I would want to change that so that the entire design would fit inside the hoop. So we'll go ahead and use the big girl hoop. There it is. I'm going to click out here so we can just see that, which is kind of nice. All right, so a lot of choices within the quilt block. That's under the Wizard tab in the quilt block. And within here, there are lots of other choices. I'm going to click on them. Okay, so I can take a shape and fill it in with a fill. I can take the shape and put that fill on the outside of the shape. This is just going to be, it's going to just fill the quilt block with a different motif. So let's take a look at that. All right, so there's my square quilt block. And at that point, I can just choose how I would like that space to be quilted. All right. And it just does the entire thing without going around a design. So lots of choices in the quilt block. All right. How are we doing? We're doing all right? Any questions? No? Excellent. Okay. I'm going to deep six this, which means it's gone. And the next thing that we're going to work on is we are going to work on the Modify tab a little bit. All right, so sometimes there are many designs out there, and sometimes they're just not what we want. It's the design is silly, or the colors aren't right, and we want to change it. So we're going to go and look at the Modify tab. Now, I will tell you, you do not have this design. I picked this design that's going to pop up on the screen in a second because it's going to be easy for me to show you some of the features. So relax and watch. So I'm in the home screen and I see this design. It says Hoppy Spring Brian. I don't know who Brian is. I just picked the name. And we see the bunny. I'm going to make this larger. So I'm down here in the bottom right corner and I'm going to enlarge this so we can see it. And one of the things that you're noticing is I've got this bunny, and on the tip of his paintbrush, dripping paint is red paint. The puddle of paint under the bunny is blue. Well, I know this is a whimsical design, but this gives me an opportunity to introduce you to modifying a design. So what I want to do is I'm going to take my design, and when I float my cursor over the color, we see that's the white on the bunny. We see the blue, which is the puddle. We see the red. The red is the red paint, and the inside of the bunny's ear is red. So if I change this red to the blue paint, I'm going to change the color inside his ear, which would be kind of silly. But we're going to do it so I can show you how to modify a design within a color block, okay? All right, so first of all, I look at that blue and I say, what color blue is that? Because I want the paint on the brush to be the same color blue in the puddle. And Alexis is giving me the timeout signal. Yes. Do we have all the categories you were showing on Plus?
I think she has extra.
Okay, so this is Beth. Okay, Beth, you have this. Yes, you have the Modify tab on Extra. Okay, so you'll be able to make these changes. Now, eventually, not today, eventually, some of the things that we'll be learning, I've got more to teach you in the Extra, okay? But eventually we'll get to some of the Ultra, where we're going to be monkeying around with the designs more than we are right now. But for right now, this is pretty simple stuff, okay? So you'll be able to do this. So I'm looking at this bunny, and I see this blue puddle, and I notice that this is Madeira Poly Neon 40, number, ding, 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 1733. And I ding, ding, because I wanted to make sure I knew the number on that color of thread. So I'm going to change that red, which is the same kind of thread. See, Madeira Poly Neon. I need to change that to 1733, right? It's that same blue. All right, so now the paint on the end of his brush is the same paint that's in the puddle. I like that. But what I don't like is his ear is now blue, which is stupid, right? So if I float the cursor over that second color block of blue, we see where it is. We see it's the tip of the paintbrush, and we see his ear. But we need to change the blue in his ear to a different color. We need to change it to a light pink, right? All right. So what I'm going to do is I have this design. It is selected, all right? So we select the design by just putting the box around it, no biggie. I'm going up here to the Modify tab. And when I click on the tab, all of a sudden this looks a little bit different, right? All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to explore a few things in the Modify tab. First off, I'm going to make this rabbit bigger so we can see him. So again, I'm going down here, and I'm going to enlarge him to 400%. Now look at these sliding bars. I'm going to put my cursor over the top one, and what that tells me is this will start the design from the first visible stitch. So when I take the slider, you're going to notice that the bunny is going to begin to disappear. Okay, it's erasing the stitches. Okay, on the second slider bar, I have the slider over to the right, and when I slide it, it goes from the end of the design, the last color block, to the first. Okay, that's important when we want to look and see how this design is made. So I want to change this blue in his ear to a different color. So is this part of his ear before or after the tip of the paintbrush? So we can go, and we notice that look at that. See where the tip of the paintbrush disappeared before the ear. Okay, so we know that we want to isolate a stitch that goes from the blue tip of the brush up to his ear and insert a color change. So we know that the ear is afterwards. I'm going to make this a little bit easier. When you're in the Modify tab, okay, I can actually turn off colors within the design. So I'm going to turn off the yellow, so there goes the paintbrush, the green, part of the paintbrush, the pink outline, gone, the green, gone, and the black, gone. So all that's left is the puddle of paint, the end of the brush, and his ear. Okay, so I'm going to go back up. And we know that the first one is a puddle of paint. The second blue is the brush and his ear. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to insert a color command. So when I click on that, notice that my cursor now has changed to a little color marker. And I've deliberately chosen a simple design. We know that it stitched this paintbrush first. We know that this traveling stitch that goes up to his ear, that's where we want to make the color change to isolate the ear and make it pink. So all I have to do is click on that traveling stitch, and it's just it's a jump stitch, right? It's not doing a straight line. It's just a jump stitch, and I want to make this a pink ear, and I want to make it I don't like that pink. It's ugly. Let's go with that pink. Okay. I'm going to hit OK. And look at that. His ear is pink. So now we can go back to the Home tab. Okay. We're going to exit Modify. We're going back to the Home tab to see our bunny. Yes. Why didn't you, where am I? Why didn't you turn off the puddle of paint? I could have. It didn't matter. I just had them both on. I wanted you to see that we had both areas of blue turned on, and when I floated the cursor over one, I could see where the blue puddle was, and when I floated the cursor over color block number 3, you could see where there was blue on the tip of the paintbrush and blue in the rabbit's ear. Now, when I look at the bunny now, and let's take him back to normal size so he doesn't look so silly. Okay, I can see my bunny. He's painting with blue paint. He spilled some blue paint, and we see the center of his ear is pink. So we inserted a color change. Easy enough to do. So this was a really simple example of how to do that, but I think when you get to playing with the Modify tab, you'll understand what that brings to the table to change color, because you may have a bouquet of flowers and maybe all the flowers are pink and you want to change the colors of them, or maybe a different color scheme. You can go in, pick that stitch that leads into a block of orange daisies, whatever, orange daisies, and you can put a color block, or excuse me, a color change in there and change those orange daisies into red. Okay, and then change again. The key is this: when we go into Modify, the big thing to remember is when you've got your design, and this design is what we brought into Modify, is to enlarge it, to make it really huge. So there's an 800 degrees up here, and it really lets you see the stitches. So if you have to isolate a stitch to make a change or a color change, really enlarging the design will let you isolate that stitch. And guess what? If you pick the wrong stitch when you're making a color change, you've got the undo button. We know where that is. That's right up here, right? Okay, so it's just kind of fun. It gives you control and makes your creativity flourish. All right, so I'm going to go back to the Home tab so we can see our bunny. Now we see something else. So I had 2 designs on my hoop. One is the bunny, and then I have some text. So it says, Happy Spring, Brian. Woo woo. Okay, so perhaps I am doing a set of t-shirts for a family reunion. And I've got 10 different kids. I want the same design for a family reunion, but the names need to change. So one of the easiest way to do that is to go into Modify. Yes, I can select this And we know how to change things, right, with properties and go into fonts. We know all of that. But I just chose this as a simple way to show you a method of eliminating things. So I've got this portion of the design chosen. It does happen to be text. When I go to modify, it's going to give me a little message. It says this will fix your selected design, which happens to be text, right, as embroidery stitches. Do you wish to continue? So at this point, I'm going to say sure. And when I get back to the home screen in a second, I won't be able to access this as text. But guess what I can do? I am now in Modify, and I need to get rid of Brian. So I'm going to go up here, and I can see that there are a variety of ways for me to select an item in a design. I can draw around Brian, and it's isolated. I can do a box select. And I can do a box select, okay? I can do a free point select. So if I'm trying to isolate, and I'm just using the word Brian, but if I have a design, perhaps I have, I think I've used this example before. You all know I like bugs, right? I have a beautiful bouquet with a bumblebee, but all I really want is the bumblebee. Well, I can isolate that, and in this case, I'm just doing points around what I want to isolate, okay? So I've isolated what I want, and at that point, I can cut this out. Oh man, wait a minute. There, I had to right click when I did the points around. I had to right click. So in other words, now I've got Brian isolated, or the bumblebee. I can cut it. Brian is gone from the screen, but Brian is over here on the clipboard. So we still have access to that. So if I wanted to save that bumblebee or get a portion of the design, and I can cut it. When I cut it, it's over here on the clipboard, and I still have access to it. So I'm going to go back to home. All right, Brian's gone. So now if I want to, I can go back into letters, and I don't want Brian. I want Sarah. And I'm good to go. Easy peasy. All right, so easy way to pick a design and just cut out the portion that you want. So let's play a little bit more with that. So we are going to go and we're going to take that same daggone bunny. We're going to go up to modify. And I showed you before, I'm going to make him a little bit bigger so it's easy to see. I see the bunny. And I'm going to turn off some colors. So I just want the bunny. I don't want the paint. I don't want the tip of the paintbrush. I don't want the yellow in the paintbrush. Okay, so we turn that off. Let's see. We're turning off a lot of the design, and that's, yeah, so I've got a little bit of kind of more of a sketch design. So I've turned those colors off, so now I can take the design, box select the bunny, okay, and again I'm going to cut him. Now when I cut him, that will overwrite what's on the clipboard. I'm within here, and I see that I've got just a paintbrush, so let's take a look at that. So I eliminated the bunny. That looks kind of ridiculous. I can go here, and I've got those items. They're still showing, right? Because the Hoppy Spring Sarah is gone, but the portion of the design that is showing, okay, I can go in and delete it. And now that those portions that were showing on the screen are gone, and we know that since I have the bunny over here just looking like an outline, I can paste him, and now it's a completely different design. Okay, so I took the color out of the paintbrush and of the puddle, etc. So the idea there is when we have a design, again, I'm going to touch on the bunny, go into modify, I can turn the colors off and isolate just a portion of a design that I want to see. I can also say select all visible, and that's grabbing everything within a design, okay? And I'm left clicking just to make that go away, okay? And I can isolate exactly what I want to deal with. All right. Let's see, learning a lot. Yay. Good to go, Genevieve. Excellent. I tell you what, the modified tab is fun to play with. Notice this select all visible. So if I go here to the bunny, I'm going to make him big again. And we're back here, and I'm drawing the bunny, and he's going to start to disappear. Okay. If I just leave this portion of the bunny, notice his ear isn't filled in, okay, and I go to select all visible, it's going to pick the bunny without any of the other colors or any of the other fills, and again, I can cut him. And when I go back, I've eliminated a portion of the design. Okay, so lots of fun. I'm gonna get rid of that because that looks very, very silly at this point. And now I just have the outline of the bunny. So that modify gives you a lot of creativity to work within your designs. Okay, so that's something that you want to play with. Insert stitches. Yikes. Okay, if you remember, and I'm just going to touch on this just a little bit. If you remember when we were enlarging designs, someone asked, how large can we take a design and just blast it? Well, we can do that to the point to where the design will crack. I'm going to get rid of Sarah. I'm going to get rid of Hoppy Spring. I'm just going to go File, and I'm going to insert a design. And let's see. I am just going down. We know how to do this. I'm just going into the samples. And I'm going into stitch 2. We know how to do that. Once we have this address, we know that we can click on any of these within that line to move forward or backwards to get to what we want. I'm going to pick, let's see what we've got in leaves. Not much. Those are ugly. Let's do butterflies and bugs. I know, more bugs. What can I say? I like them. They're fun. My family is one of the few that's rejoicing with the cicadas. Alexis is shaking her head. She thinks I'm weird. Well, yeah, okay. Anyway. Let's see. Could you fill in that paintbrush that you pulled out and used insert stitches to fill in those areas that were in the bunnies, and use insert stitches to fill in the areas that were in the bunny's hands? I'll tell you what, Cindy. That's a yes and a no. You could. It's very difficult. For what we're doing today, I want you to just look at this for insert stitches. While you could do that and insert those stitches, it is not easy. It is very, very difficult. To insert stitches, that is more of an ultra in the Create module, which we will eventually get to. But for today, I want to show you how to insert stitches just in a very simple fashion. I have my design. I'm getting there, Cindy, I promise. And I'm going to make it much bigger, and we know how to do that. Yeah, this will work a little bit because I just want to show you a little bit. I'm going to change the hoop because that'll drive me crazy. I know, short drive, but I have to have a bigger hoop because I just can't stand it. We're going to go 180, 130. How does that work? I probably need bigger. Let's go 200, 200. There we go. Okay. So I got the daggone bug, right? All right, so when we're looking at this bug, I notice that the design is beginning to crack apart, and we used that terminology before. And I'm just going to go and look at just one very small section because there's some trouble. We can see here the satin stitching around the side is starting to break apart. We can see it start to break apart here. I can take this design into Modify, and I'm going to be switching back and forth, and I need to make it bigger so I can see. So I'm going to make it, here we go. All right, I'm going to pick right here. See where right here below this purple circle, see where there's that little bit of white showing? I'm going to insert a couple stitches there to cover that white up. Now, I've really enlarged this a lot, and you can see it starting to crack, but I can go in, and I can go into the Modify tab. See right here, because you have to look where it is, go into Modify, and I'm going to insert some stitches right here. See the gap right there? So I'm going to go in here, and I'm just clicking in that area where there's a gap. So I'm clicking, and then I'm going to right click, and that'll stop the stitching. I'm going to go back in there, click again, click, click. It's almost like I'm sewing. So I'm clicking across, then right click to stop it. All right. So where, and you can see this is not great, but this, all I'm doing is showing you the technique. You can see where this black filled in that white gap. Okay. So what we're doing is we're inserting stitches. Now look right here. See how there's white where this is starting to break apart? We could go in there and insert stitches. When we click, we're going to grab the red thread. I'm going to go click, 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 and then right click to end that row of stitches. Do you want to do this all the time? Absolutely not. It is no fun, and it looks okay. But if you have a design that you just can't live without and you need to fill in a bare spot, this will do it. Excuse me, I have to cough. All right. So you can see, I think right there, Cindy, that would just be yikes. Okay, it would be a real challenge to fill something in. Now, I will tell you that I have, I'll give you an example. I had a really nice design from Oh My Crafty Supply, and it says, bloom where you are planted. And there was a hand, and the hand was holding a plant, and the fingernails were painted, but guess what? The nail on the thumb was not painted. Well, that's just stupid, but I like the design. So I went and I found just some fill stitches like these. I just cut an area of the stitches, and when I cut it, it went over here on the clipboard, and then I pasted and put that and shaped it to make that fingernail, which is kind of goofy. What? I have a question. Cracking looks like. Let's see. How do you start and stop a stitch? Okay, you're going to left click with your mouse, and you're going to go click, 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 and then when you right click, that stops the stitch. Then you can go back, and again, just almost like you're sewing, click, 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 then right click, and it will stop the stitch. Okay? All right. So I did that on the fingernail. Was it perfect? No. Did it look pretty good? Yeah, it looked pretty good. The young lady that I gave the pillow to, she was delighted. And I would not have been delighted if the thumbnail wasn't painted and the rest of the nails were, because that would have been silly. Okay. Questions. Do we have any other questions for today? No? Looks like we're good. Okay. Well, that's our lesson for today. Alexis is grabbing the mouse. So remember a couple things. Oh, I know. There was one more thing. Give me the mouse back, please. Oh, come on. Let me have the mouse. She won't give me the mouse. I can't believe that. Okay. Hang for me a second. I'm going to deep six this, and I'm going to get a much bigger hoop. Hang on. Did you change the mouse? No. Okay. I want the big girl hoop. And I want a nice clear font. I'll go with this one. And I want to make it just a little bigger, 20. And what I want is LUKESSEWING, Luke Sewing. It's not .com, just Luke Sewing at Gmail, correct?
Luke Sewing Center.
Ah, see, that's why she's here. CENTER, Luke Sewing Center at gmail.com. Okay, so This is the email address. So it's Luke's Sewing Center. I did this because I wanted you to see there are two S's. Okay? Luke's Sewing Center at gmail.com. So I want you to practice with your software. I want you to keep a tablet and a pen next to your computer. I want you to write questions down, and I want you to send them to lukesewingcenter at gmail.com. Now, this is important. This email address is the one that Alexis and I and Kathleen and Ann use for our Zoom classes. It is not an email address that is constantly monitored. It is for us to play with, you and I. So you can send your questions for our software class to this email address because it won't get mixed up with all the business, okay, with all the business emails that go into Luke's. So send your questions here, and then I'll address those next week. Hopefully you all agree that we want to move forward with more software lessons. And the last thing that we've got to do is we need to draw a name for our prize. And Alexis has all the names in. I am reaching in right now, not peeking, because I wouldn't do that. I've got a name. And the person that wins the prize is Mary Wasson. So Mary, stop on in the store. We've got your prize here. You get a nice bottle of Freight Check. All right, Alexis, anything else? We're good? All right, until next time, it's Brenda for Luke's. Bye-bye for now.